It's a real genuine pleasure to welcome you to this pre-conference event, leading into the State of the Tourism Industry Conference, or what you call SOTIC. Today's event will commemorate World Tourism Day, and it will serve as our third installment of CTO's Sustainable Tourism in Action series. Right? Our theme this year, Sustainable Transformation and Tourism. It's not just a slogan, it's about asking how do we make tourism work for people, planet, and prosperity in a very lasting way. And this call for stewardship of our environment is as old as humanity itself. In the book of Genesis 2:15, it is written, "The Lord God took man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and take care of it." That was our first instruction, to care for creation. And thousands of years ago, as well, in the Atharvaved, right, there's a saying in Sanskrit, Mata Bhumi Puroham Prithvi. The earth is my mother and I am her child. I'm glad I didn't butcher the Sanskrit. And that's a reminder that we are not owners of this planet, but children with a duty to honor and protect it. Having cited scriptures and stuff, we will be passing around the collection plates down to the back. All right. And what could be more fitting for our discussion today? With tourism at its heart, it's about connection to place, to culture, to people. And of course, as we said, if the earth is our mother and we are called to be her stewards, then every journey we take should leave her better than we found her. And that is the essence of sustainable transformation. Now, to officially open today's proceedings, it is my honor to invite someone who embodies this vision for our region, a leader at the helm of the Caribbean Tourism Organization. She has been a driving force in strengthening Caribbean resilience, championing innovation, and advancing sustainability as central to our tourism future. Please join me in welcoming the Secretary General of the Caribbean Tourism Organization, Mrs. Donna Regis Prosper, to bring her welcome and opening remarks.
Thank you, Narendra. Good afternoon, everyone. Please allow me to adopt the protocol that's already been established, but I would like to take the opportunity to recognize the presence of the ministers in the room. Honorable Charles Fernandez, Minister for Tourism for Antigua. And Barbuda. I should know better, Minister. And Minister Corner, who is the Minister of Tourism and Health from Anguilla. It is truly a pleasure to welcome you this afternoon as we gather to celebrate World Tourism Day, which was celebrated on September 27th. On behalf of my chairman, Honorable Ian Edgell-Gooden, my Council of Ministers, Board of Directors, I extend warm welcome to all of you, our valued partners, distinguished panelists, and to everyone who's contributing to strengthening and advancing tourism in the region. This year's theme for World Tourism Day, Sustainable Transformation and Tourism, could not be more timely. And for me, it is also very deeply personal. Just a few days ago, I had the opportunity to return home to St. Lucia. Specifically, I had the opportunity to return to the community where I grew up. And it was not only nostalgic for me, but it was also going back to my roots and experiencing where I think community tourism all started. Community tourism is about going back to our roots. It was grounding for me. I was able to experience the richness of my childhood. And let me share some of that with you, because it provides a lot of context. So I was able to relive my farm-to-table experience as a child, where local farmers, i.e. my uncles, and cooks, i.e. my aunts and my mother, came together not only to share a meal, but to share folklore, stories, and sometimes it became family talent on parade, turning over of buckets, turning that into beating of drums. The family dancers, or those who perceive who were the dancers, and the singers will come together. And that is where community tourism was born, at least for me. And I have to tell you, back then, we didn't call it farm to table. That was not a thing. It was just the way we knew how to eat. Eating off the land and coming together as a family and coming together as community, because very often the next door neighbor would come together, and before you know it, you have a full-on celebration. And it was at that time we were 100% Caribbean, and unapologetically so. So many times when we think about community tourism, we think about it in the context of how we understand it today, but we just have to look back into our roots and see where it all started. So this is what sustainable tourism means for the Caribbean. It's not an abstract concept. It's, as I said before, going back to our roots. We are also a region on the forefront of climate change. We live with rising sea levels, more intense storms, and also increased fragility of our natural ecosystems. And yet tourism remains that vital engine, empowering our economies, supporting our livelihoods, and shaping a future where we're working very hard to secure, not only for ourselves, but generations to come. And I'm so happy to see so many students in the room today. Join me in giving the students such a warm and wonderful welcome. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. So when we speak about transforming tourism, we must also think beyond policies and plans. It means reshaping how we approach growth and development of this sector. At the Caribbean Tourism Organization, this vision is at the heart of our Reimagine plan. We are committed to working with our members to build a more resilient and inclusive tourism. We're proud to be champions of efforts for the blue, green, orange, and purple economy that drive innovation, empower communities at every level. One of the most important ways in advancing this vision is through strategic partnership. And as we gather here today, I am particularly proud of our partnership and our collaboration with the OECS Commission, which continues to be a model for regional cooperation and sustainable tourism development. And on a personal note, Maria, we've known each other for decades. Not dating ourselves, but we have known each other for decades. And I want to acknowledge publicly your commitment to tourism. And maybe I never said this to you, but you're one of the reasons I got into tourism. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me in giving Maria a special and warm round of applause for her commitment and her contribution and her leadership in tourism. It's always a pleasure to work alongside you. Our shared vision for sustainable tourism, integrated tourism development across the Caribbean is bearing fruit. Together, we are working to align strategies, mobilize resources, and promote initiatives that place people and planet at the center of regional tourism. The transformation we speak of is already underway. We see creative tourism projects in sustainable fashion and food experiences, in community-driven initiatives, and in regional festivals that celebrate our diversity and shared heritage. As we begin today's panel, I encourage each of us to reflect on how we could move from vision to action, how we could make sustainable transformation real, not only in policy, but in practice, not only in boardrooms, but in communities. Let's ensure that the future we build is one that is authentically Caribbean, that leaves no one behind. Thank you very much, and I look forward to conversations and commitments that will emerge from today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Secretary General, for that. Now, to borrow the words of Ban Ki-moon, there's no plan B because we do not have a planet B, and tourism must be part of the solution. Now, we've brought together an incredible panel of experts and change makers to guide us through this discussion. I'll keep the introduction short because you want to hear their insights, not their CVs, right? And they've got some fantastic bios. I mean, it will just blow you away. So to welcome, please help me welcome to the stage Kim Butcher. Kim Butcher is a cultural strategist and social entrepreneur, leading CARIFESTA 25 with innovation, inclusion, and sustainability, while championing ethical fashion and community empowerment across the region. Kim Butcher. Next on stage, we have Maria Fowell. Maria Fowell is a regional tourism leader and senior technical specialist at the OECS Commission, driving sustainable, climate resilient, and inclusive tourism development across the Caribbean. Maria Fowell. And of course, we have, coming again to the stage, we have Loretto Duffy Meyers. Loretto Duffy Meyers is a seasoned sustainable tourism expert helping hotels, governments, and regional programs transition into greener, climate-smart practices across the Caribbean and Latin America. Please welcome Loretto Duffy Meyers. All right, so now that we have our panelists, let's dive right in. So my first question to all our panelists, let's start with Kim, and then we'll go to Maria and Loretto. Tourism is in transformation everywhere. In one sentence, when you hear sustainable transformation in tourism, what does it mean to you? Is it about resilience? Is it about digital innovation? Is it about green practices? Or just something abstract, something else?
Thank you so much. For me, it is the all to both. When I think about sustainable tourism, I think about, yes, greening, but I also think about storytelling, our ability to connect with communities on the ground, not just in hotels or in restaurants, but going into communities and having those deep dive conversations about what it is that people are doing, what is it that we're making as artisans. So whenever I think about sustainable tourism, I think about the storytelling, the language of tourism, which is our business.
Excellent. And Maria, over to you. What comes to mind?
Hi. So for me, I think of it as moving from volume to value.
Mm-hmm.
So I see it as all of the resilience, the innovation, But certainly I see that it needs to be where it can hit home, where it can impact lives. I think that that's what we're moving towards. So
we're talking about impactful.
Yes, totally in agreement with Kim.
Okay, and Loretto.
Yes, absolutely. I think all of the three issues that you raised there, but I think I am absolutely in agreement with the ladies in that community has got to get a major consideration here. I'm a little bit concerned about the word transformation. I am more inclined to see it as regeneration, because as Donna was quite rightly saying, we're not really doing anything new here. We're going back to the way that we used to operate, and I think we need more of that. We need to build our communities to be able to benefit from tourism. And I think if I had my way, I think there would be a policy which would insist that every single dollar that is made out of tourism in any of these countries has got to benefit the communities in such a way that they welcome tourism and that they are not afraid of what it's going to do to them.
Excellent. So we got impactful, we got people, we got volume to value, and we got, of course, the communities and paying attention to communities. Now, in terms of Maria, and let's take a policy angle now. Policies often look good on paper, but they are hard to implement. What's one bold policy shift that could truly accelerate sustainable tourism transformation in the Caribbean?
Okay, so dare I say that even putting the policies on paper can be difficult as well, and can be quite challenging. As we had seen with the OECS Sustainable Tourism Policy that we have just recently completed, but certainly implementation is even harder. And it's one thing to have a good policy, and it's another thing to turn that policy into action. And one of the bold policy moves that I can say from the OECS side is taking that sustainable tourism policy and now looking at just one small aspect. So we're looking at bite-sized actions, and later on this afternoon we'll have the opportunity to launch the OECS Climate Action Plan for Tourism, and I think that that's taking bite-sized actions out of a policy.
Okay, excellent. So incremental steps towards sustainability. And it reminds me of a proverb, a Japanese proverb. Vision without action is a daydream, and action without vision is a nightmare. That just sort of sums up. Loretto, sustainability sometimes can feel like an extra cost. How do we flip the script so that businesses see it as an investment, one that pays off in competitiveness and in revenue?
I had to think very carefully about this one, because it's something that we have been working on for many, many, many years, trying to get hotels and tourism entities to invest in energy efficiency, renewable energy, water conservation, etc. And I'm convinced now at this point in time, when you take into consideration what we have to face nowadays in terms of rising energy costs, rising costs in general, because most of what we actually have to purchase, we have absolutely no influence whatsoever over what things cost. We have to look at what's happening with climate change. We also have to look at what is impacting our profitability. And so what we have to do is try to reframe this whole concept into something that people will actually realize there's a benefit to. And that is something that I think is probably best termed as risk management. We have to look to see that by what the impacts will be if we actually invest in energy efficiency, in efficiencies generally, trying to reduce our costs, trying to reduce wastage of all our precious resources, the impact that would have on us in terms of our resilience and our ability to get back up on our feet again in the event of any kind of disasters which might hit us. But it has to be seen as an investment. And I know we hear all the time, oh, you have to spend money to save money. And unfortunately, yes, it is one of those things that we really do have to look at. Risk management is what I would put it back down to.
Risk, okay. Kim, communities are often talked about, but they are not always included. What does real, meaningful community participation in sustainable tourism look like?
It means bringing us at the table. What you're doing today is absolutely amazing. Expanding who you bring to the table to talk about tourism and tourism initiatives and procurement. Ensure that when you're having your procurement policies, that there is a commitment to including as many artisans to the table, ensuring that they do have a voice, that they can say, these are our concerns, ensuring that you protect our spaces, so our beaches, our lands, that is what is important, and coming into the community. So having conferences are absolutely amazing, but take some of the conversations into the community where you can see firsthand what is happening.
Excellent, excellent. And Maria, globally, there's talk of regenerative tourism, going beyond that do no harm to actively leaving destinations better. Is the Caribbean ready for this? And what would it take?
I don't think we're fully ready, but I think we can get there. It's a means of what it means is to be able to empower communities. We need to hardwire things like biodiversity conservation. We need to look at resource stewardship. And I think for governments, it's about using some of the tools, some of the policies that have been put in place, and seeing how they can use that to influence standards and legislation. It's for tourism service providers, like Loretta said, reducing carbon emissions, sourcing locally, creating experiences around the natural attractions. It's for communities, as Kim said. We want to talk about co-designing and co-ownership of the tourism product. And it is also for our visitors. They need to also have a sort of self-check and a shift in their mindset, self-reflection. How can they have a deeper connection? And I think that there's a pathway, but it's going to take everybody for us to get there.
Yeah. And as they say, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. Yeah. Let's start projecting forward a little bit. If you had a magic wand, and I'm going to start with Kim. If you had a magic wand and you could change one thing about Caribbean tourism tomorrow to make it more sustainable, what would it be?
I would ensure that tourism is taught in schools, from primary school, that we understand that tourism isn't something that is an add-on. It is our business. So as soon as you can read and write, you understand where your place is within the tourism ecosystem. So that, for me, would be the one thing I would do.
At the school level. Okay, Maria? If you had a magic wand and could change one thing about Caribbean tourism tomorrow to make it more sustainable, what would it be?
Can I have more than one magic wand?
Go ahead, go ahead.
Can I have more than one thing that I could wish for? I certainly would place community benefit sharing at the center of everything. If there is a way to be able to ensure that every arrival directly impacts and translates into some improved local livelihoods and climate resilience, if we can have a direct impact from every single visitor, I think that would be my wish.
Direct impact, okay. And Loretto, the magic wand has been passed on to you. What would you
I
do?
think the magic wands have already been used, certainly. And no, I absolutely fully agree. And I am a firm believer that we have gotten away from, unfortunately, from involving our communities. There are too many instances of where we see situations where we are informed that a huge hotel is going to go up in such and such a place, and nobody in the neighbourhood knew a thing about it. It is having a direct impact on the lives of the people who are making a living in the area. All of a sudden, they're being forced to upgrade and do things that they may not necessarily be used to. Going back to, again, what Kim says, you have to give the community a voice. You have to, and I'm not talking about a little community, I'm talking about the whole area that is being impacted. People have to be able to speak their minds and say, well, we don't really think that this is going to benefit us. Or if you're saying that it is going to be a benefit, show us the benefits so that we can actually find a way to reap those benefits, because there's too many instances of where whole communities are being devastated by what is supposed to be great for tourism. So I think, yes, the involvement of the community is absolutely paramount.
Okay, underscoring that importance. Loretto, let's start with you this time. If you could give tourism businesses here one practical tool, habit, or checklist they could start using tomorrow to be more sustainable, what would it be?
Well, as I think I said before there, we have to look at efficiency across the board. We need to look at energy efficiency, we need to look at cost efficiency, we need to look at our labour efficiency. We have to look at all of those things. We have to take into account all of the areas that are impacting our profitability, and we have to start thinking outside the box. Donna, again, mentioned the things like the farm to table, all of the benefit, the things that we grew up with. These things have been, for a very long time, have been add-ons, but they're not now. They're revenue generators and they're revenue drivers. People are looking for farm to table. They're looking for the nature hike. They're looking for eat with a Bajan. All of those kind of things across the region. So we have to start thinking efficiency and going back to the roots.
Localized experiences. All right. Maria, if you could give tourism businesses here one practical tool, habit, or checklist they could start using tomorrow to be more sustainable, what would it be?
So I would give a simple checklist.
Okay.
Every decision that is made should answer 3 questions. How does this reduce carbon emissions?
Mm-hmm.
How does this build community benefit? And how does this protect ecosystems? Simple checklist.
So we have carbon, we have community, and we have the environment, ecosystems. Kim?
And for me, it would be, how do we tell the story of what it is that we're doing? All too often, we create these wonderful experiences, but if we aren't able to tell the authentic story, then persons are left empty. Everything I do as a sustainable fashion designer is built on the story behind. And we have to remember, people are buying into why we do what we do. So they want to hear the story behind the shirt, the belt, the bag. They want to understand what has gone into this. If we are able to co-create together and tell real, authentic stories, then we won't have a problem moving forward in adding on the price, because this is what will differentiate us from everybody else. It is our ability to tell simple, authentic, honest stories.
Yeah, and I smiled when you mentioned belt, because I remember before you came on stage, you gave me that story about that belt that you created, and it has images and pictures of places in Barbados. So when you purchase that belt and you're moving around, and you take it abroad and so on, you're actually taking a piece of Barbados with you, a piece of history and so on, and maybe you can show them the belt after. Right?
Yes, sure, no problem.
So let's look at individual tool-focused, follow-ups and so on now. So let's go with Maria this time. What's the one framework or resource stakeholders can use to measure sustainability progress?
So UN Tourism has an interesting framework, statistical framework for measuring sustainable tourism, so that it doesn't just measure the arrivals, but also the impacts. And so it's an interesting framework that I don't think that we have fully taken on board in our region. And we are hoping at the OECS level to come up with a version of it that is suitable to our region, that we can really truly start measuring the impacts. Because it's only when you start measuring the impacts, then you know what to do next. You know what decisions to make, and how you can really plan for the future.
All right, Loretto, what's one quick win hotels can implement that saves costs and reduce environmental footprint?
Well, it's going back to what I said earlier. It's efficiency, and in particular, energy efficiency. And we have to start looking to see how this will impact our resilience. And we've got to try and encourage hotels to start considering more how they can invest in different methodologies and different equipment, etc., which is going to cut costs. I think that's very, very important. But I also just wanted to add on to what Maria was saying there about the resources. You know, back in the 90s, 61% of the green hotels in the world were in the Caribbean. Now, there's a statistic that I don't think most people even know about. And I can tell you, Barbados had more hotels green hotels per square mile than any other country in the world, right? Now, we look now, that has dropped significantly. And, you know, every day I ask myself why. Back 20 years ago, 25 years ago, I worked in a hotel called the Casuarina Hotel, which is now where Sandals is. And that hotel won every global award in the world. And it became almost like the teaching hotel. And me, in my naivety, actually believed that everybody would want to be like that one of these days. Well, who told me to think that? But it is something we need to start going back and looking at and asking ourselves, why aren't we looking at sustainability in that way? Where not only were we saving money, though that was not the objective. The objective was to actually save wastage, prevent wastage of precious resources, so we would still have water in years to come when our guests came back. So sorry for going on a little bit long, but that's the one thing that worries me, that we don't have that same mindset anymore.
Yeah, and that example, reminds me of a recent study that was done by UWI St. Augustine, led by Dr. Kola Cameron, and she looked at eco-labels in the Caribbean, and she had good support in collecting data, actually from Frank and the CHTA. And in that particular study, it showed that those hotels, who went in the direction of adopting Green Key, for example, have gone on to also report on, the same efficiencies. You spoke about the energy efficiencies, the cost savings, and all of those things, right? So there's scientific evidence of that as well. I also want to take this time and this opportunity to, recognize Minister from Turks and Caicos, Minister Jolly, and of course, the president of the Barbados Tourism and Hotel Association, who are in the crowd. So you can give them a round of applause. All right. And Kim, what's one way tourism operators can partner with creative industries like yours to add value for visitors?
Co-creation is where it's at. Move away from just selling our souvenirs to coming into our workshops, seeing how we make what we make. Come into not just our workshops, but come into our dining rooms as well to see how the food is prepared. It is important that we're not just selling products, we're also telling stories, as I would have indicated earlier. That is a critical missing step when we talk about tourism and the tourism experience. People are coming to Barbados to experience what it means to be Bajan. to taste our food and not just what they can get in the restaurants, but to see what's happening in Oystins beyond that. Go into the water, see the fish. We had lionfish, understand how it is that we turn that predator into something that's absolutely delicious. There's a story for every single thing, and that is the why. That is what is going to make us stand out when we talk about tourists and ensuring that they have an authentic experience.
Excellent. Now, I have a question for each panelist. It's the same question, and I'll start with Loretto. In 2030, when you look back, what headline do you want to see about Caribbean tourism's journey towards sustainability?
I want to see the Caribbean being seen as the happiest place in the world, where the communities are welcoming tourism with open arms and are benefiting significantly, not only in financially, but also in terms of making their spaces better, their environments cleaner, and their resources are becoming, their resources and their assets are becoming better all the time as a result of the investment in tourism.
All right, Kim?
I want to see growing together, thriving forever. I want to see a partnership, that tourism isn't just an add-on, but it is a part of our daily lives.
And Maria?
Headline, Caribbean tourism leads the world in regeneration. You know, we want to look at ensuring that we are impacting lives and restoring the environment.
Yes.
So leading the way.
So we've got communities, we have growing together, part of daily lives, and of course regeneration. And communities was mentioned again, it's, keeping count, it's 17 times it's mentioned so far since we started. You know, so it just shows that bottom-up, way of doing things, it's extremely valuable. So I had asked a couple of members in the audience before we came on stage, what questions you would like and so on. And a few of them were shy. They gave me some questions here. But you know what? We have a lot of students here, and I want to take the opportunity now, because if we're talking about transforming the tourism industry and sustainability and moving, forward, we should think succession planning. We should think encouraging the youths and so on. They are a major aspect and a major part of sustainable transformation. So I want to take this time. I've allocated some time for the students who are in the crowd today to ask a couple of questions. You can ask the panelists any questions as it relates to sustainable transformation and tourism. So we do have microphones, and I see we have some hands up. All right, so let's, yeah, this one, thank you. Thank you. So just by raising your hand, we can start with some of these students. What's your name and what school are you from?
Good
Yeah.
Stand and face this way, please.
She wasn't expecting that.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Khalida Lewison, and I'm from Hampton School. My question is, we had a workshop earlier, and we were speaking about tourism and how tourism is being implemented. Not tourism. We're speaking about technology and how it's now being implemented more in tourism. However, technology doesn't necessarily go well in terms of green tourism or a natural environment or sustainable tourism. So my question is, how are we going to balance implementing technology in tourism while keeping tourism sustainable and keeping our country as clean as possible?
Okay.
Technology and tourism. Who wants to go first?
Well, I think I will, because first and foremost, obviously, when you look at a hotel, for example, And when I've been talking about energy efficiency, you have to bring technology in order to make the properties more efficient. And that can be anything from bringing in new air conditioning units, bringing in renewable energy, putting solar panels on your roof. We already see Barbados, like nearly everywhere you look, there are solar hot water heaters. You have to bring in, we have to try and save water nowadays, so we need water tanks, we need all sorts of different ways of preventing wastage of water. And so therefore technology is vital. There's no two ways about it. We also have to look at the use of, say, for example, things like social media, ways of actually promoting our products. We also have to look at the dreaded AI, which is going to do some wonderful things for us, but is also could be very, very harmful if we're not very careful. So we have to keep abreast of technology, but at the same time, it can live very well with our natural environment if we're doing things properly. Yes, we have to be fully aware that we don't want, I think you're probably thinking in terms of awful looking buildings going out in a very nice field, or something awful going up on the beach. But we have to go forward with them. You know, we have arguments about whether we should be putting wind turbines out in the ocean. But there will come a day where we will have to say to ourselves, well, look, in order for us to reduce the cost of our energy, we may just have to do that. But we have to do it in a tasteful way. We have to do it with consultation. So no matter what way we look on it, technology is going to be a major part of our sustainable transformation.
Yes, I want to add to that. Technology allows us to be able to measure our impact in a real way. So technology goes hand in hand with everything that we're doing for tourism. So whether it is how we communicate, and it definitely reduces waste. If you want to be able to measure what you're doing, you use technology as an aid and as an add-on. And that is what I want to be your major takeaway when you think about using technology. It is your support, it is not your replacement. And if done efficiently and effectively, it can ensure that we can measure our impact down to the millisecond of what it is that we're doing. So you see it as your co-creator and your enhancer, and the way to measure your impact and success.
I mean, I would support that as well. It's not one or the other. It's an enabler. And so you have to look at the digital innovation and what are the things. So you take the good from technology and maybe you leave the not so good, but certainly it's an enabler. It's not one or the other. We need the technology in order to be able to measure, in order to the policies, the decision making on the policies, the decision making on the activities that we may have to do at a government level, at a service provider level. But you need the technology in order to do that.
Yeah, and even with technology as well, it's being used to manage carbon and so on. So you can use it for a lot of carbon sequestration projects. And a prime example that comes to my mind is in Tobago. They would collect a lot of these old plastic bottles and so on. Plastic bottles take, by the way, 450 years to decay. All right, and they would grind them up into small, tiny particles. They mix them with cement, and then they make, benches and park benches and so on with it. So they found ways to encase the plastic and use it so that it doesn't go back into the natural environment. So that is one. And true, by utilizing technology and best practices and know-how, aircrafts and airlines now are experimenting with different types of fuel. So you have in New Zealand and Lufthansa are examples, and there are many others in current issues in tourism. So that's a journal that comes out in New Zealand, and they have tons of examples and studies on tourism and transportation, right? And how technology has been used to curb it. So they use jatropha oil and so on now. That's a short oily plant that comes out of Africa, and they've been able to use it as a source of aviation fuel, right? So those are some examples where technology can be. And then sometimes technology, when you define it and you break it down, it doesn't necessarily mean a lot of equipment and this and that. It can also take the form of a new way of doing things, right? So even taking old packaging like old boxes and so on, and upcycling them for it to become a food source. I did this with some students at UE a couple years ago, where we took cardboard boxes and so on that, had apples and so on in it, and you can actually grow mushrooms with them. You just need it to be moist and store it in a dark place and that sort of thing. You can also use technology by, even in your own homes, in your kitchen, just the stale cooking oil that you would normally throw away, you can actually filter that and create a hand soap out of it through spawnification. You just need some light crystals, some warm water, and you need to do it outside. Otherwise, you create choking gas. But and you need some molds that you can set it in and so on, and it ladders up and so on, just like soap. So you control, again, what goes out into the environment. Any other questions? Go ahead.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jenik Polius. I am the Junior Minister for Tourism for St. Lucia, and I'm a first-year student at the Safa Lewis Community College. So, we all know that tourism is a multifaceted industry, right? This leads me to my question. As the youth, hold on, give me a second.
Take your time.
It cannot be stressed enough that the youth are the future of tourism. So I'm asking you, the panelists, your personal opinion on how and what do you want to see from the youth when you pass on the baton to us, going forward and to keep it thriving.
She's looking directly at me, so I'm going to answer first. Yes, we're talking about transformation. We're talking about continuation. We must have the involvement of the youth. Not even so much that you are going to replace us at some point, but because we want you to be partners with us, so that we do have end up with a better tourism product. There are a lot of youth that have innovative ideas that we older persons, and I see some people looking at me as if, well, speak for yourself, I'm not older, but we older persons may not have. So it is about communication, it is about youth in tourism, it is about looking at things differently. What do you think about community tourism? You may have different ideas, and so the dialogue needs to happen. And certainly it's not just a pass the baton. It's let's work together for because Kim spoke about the storytelling. The storytelling happens maybe from experience. That experience is then handed down. Those stories are handed down, communicated, and then told differently by a younger person. Their perspective may be different. So I think it's about working together. We have to be very clear on what kind of tourism we want. You are the future, and so you need to determine what kind of tourism you want, and to be able to input into that. Very important.
I love your question, and as soon as you said it, the very first thing that came back to me is the ability to do the all to both. And that's a very Bajan thing to say. I would want every young person and young at heart to leave everything on the table. When I say that tourism is our business, I mean really and truly, when you think about your job and your role in tourism, use everything in your arsenal. So you may be a tourism practitioner in a hotel, but that doesn't mean that you don't have a creative talent in something else or somewhere else. It is all a part of building your story. As young people, you have an opportunity to self-actualize in a way that in my time, you choose a stream. So when I say tourism is your business, it's our business, it's every single thing that you do. If you are a dancer, if you're a singer, you're academic, use every single thing in your arsenal because this world is yours for the taking. Don't limit yourself to one stream. Tourism is every single thing that you touch, every single thing that you do. People want to hear your authentic story. And the beauty of technology is that you can tell it without filter. Everything. You can share your podcast. You can be a podcaster, a fashion designer, and a tourism practitioner. Don't be limited by any one thing. Tourism is our business, and use every single thing that you have as a tourism practitioner, because we are buying into you, your brand. You are the future.
Loretta, anything to add?
Yeah, I will absolutely go along with what the ladies have said. And you look, we want your opinion, of course we do, but we want informed opinions, right? I know there's a lot of young people out there who are saying, oh, tourism is not giving us what we want this, we want that, we want everything. But bear in mind that most of our tourism economies in this region are very broad. You know, a lot of us have lived for many, many years with, you know, certainly of the parts of our Barbados where in the wintertime, we have some hotels that would have a 70% repeat rate. You know, and there are certain areas that could have a 50% repeat rate where we're getting the same tourists coming over and over again. And a lot of the young people say, man, that place ain't for me, that is too old. So we want to hear what you think would appeal to you in a very broad way. But I also want to see what Kim was saying there was very interesting. You have skills that maybe we're not as fast at learning. For example, I remember going back many years ago, if the manager walked in the office and you were on Facebook, you were going to get your walking papers. Nowadays, if you're good on Facebook, the chances are you get promoted. So like, you know, you do have skills there. You're all good on TikTok and Facebook and IG and all those. And I don't even know half the rest of the names. I try to keep up with them. But the point is, they are skills that you all have. You all are, everybody that I see nowadays on Instagram is a digital creator. That's what everybody calls themselves, right? Because you have that ability to come up with these new thinking, ways of thinking in a fresh way that is going to be of great assistance. So promote them. You know, promote those skills that you have so as to help us to actually use what our knowledge is telling us is the way to go, so that you can help us to promote them in a way that we can get out there to everybody.
Yeah, excellent point. I want to get some more questions. We have some questions from the youths again. Go ahead, and then we'll move across.
My name is Mary Shalford. I am the Junior Minister of Tourism for St. Kitts, and
Is your microphone on?
I am representing the Immaculate Conception Catholic School. I have two questions. Firstly, as mentioned before, tourism is a multifaceted industry, and we are all talking about sustainability. The first aspect of tourism is accessibility. How do you see different aspects such as SAF, sustainable aviation fuel, and other impacts on tourism for accessibility? Because a lot of eco-tourists, the first thing they look at is the plane I'm taking sustainable, is it eco-friendly? The second thing is heritage tourism. Heritage tourism isn't usually looked at as an aspect of sustainability. Everybody looks at economic, social, we look at all of that, but we don't look at cultural preservation and historical preservation. So what actions do you think can be made to help in the awareness of this and helping preserve our culture and our heritage? Thank you.
Festivals. True and true. You go first.
So maybe I can take her last question first. You're right. A lot of the time we don't think of heritage tourism as being sustainable, and it very much is. And we have a lot of history, a lot of heritage, a lot of culture in our region, and that's what we should be promoting, and that's what should be part of these storytelling that Kim is referring to, and all of the ideas that everybody has. So it's there, and I think that it's being promoted sometimes a bit subtly, as part of the overall experience, as opposed to as a niche market. So your ministers, you're sitting next to junior ministers that have a lot of wonderful ideas, And I think that we can certainly take a page from the young people. So heritage tourism is definitely in our region something that we need to zero in on, and not just as an add-on. I think that that's where the challenge is. You know, we need to see it as a niche as opposed to just an add-on.
Okay. There are two things I want to say. The first of which is we are beginning to look at our carbon emissions footprint when visitors do come to our shores. And one of the things that's in Barbados, especially for CariFesta, which would have just taken place in August, and the one previously, is that we look at creating opportunities to offset that carbon emissions footprint. So for the very first time in 2017, Barbados was one of the first countries to champion creating carbon neutral activities, inviting all of our visiting delegations to engage in either tree planting and other activities to ensure that they were making meaningful and conscious decisions as it relates to their own carbon emissions footprint. And I can see that is something moving forward that the rest of the region is going to be looking to do. Yes, we want you to come to our shores, but there is a cost. There is a carbon emissions footprint that accompanies that. What can you do, whether it is to give back in the community, to ensure that your impact has some meaning? So those things are happening. My space is the culture space. So with CariFesta, that is one of the places and spaces where we do see a conscious decision to look at our sustainable development goals, to create opportunities not just for persons to think about their impact, but to ensure that our vendors are doing what it is that we need them to do to ensure that there are sustainable practices, whether it is through the recycling of materials and products, whether it's how we do our sourcing. So there are conscious things that we are doing with our festivals in particular. And I know for Trinidad, there is the Carney Cycle program, which affords persons the opportunity to recycle and upcycle their costumes. So we are making some conscious decisions to not just be more sustainable, but to be more proactive when we think about our waste and the impact on our environment.
Excellent. Loretto?
Yes, I thought your question about the sustainable aviation fuel is very interesting. I think it'll be a while before anybody is going to get on a plane that claims to have biofuel or biodiesel or something running it. It's going to take a while before it is proven to be absolutely safe, and then we'll see about it. Yes, of course, there is a whole, for quite a while now, I mean, ecotourism has become a very, very important part of the tourism sector in this region. And I mean, we have some countries in particular, places like Guyana and places like Trinidad and Suriname, Dominica, and then some. Everywhere almost can look at ecotourism. And we have some very, very fashionable eco-lodges around the place. And people are saying, oh yes, we want to go back to nature and we want to be able to see the reality of what the islands are like. But at the end of the day, most tourists still want a very comfortable bed with air conditioning and a good steak and a nice bottle of wine at the end of the day. So while they will preach with you and tell you, oh yes, we want to be as close to nature as possible, there still are the creature comforts that they are demanding. And so with the result, we have to allow a very large amount of flexibility when it comes to looking at these things. Of course, I fully agree with what the girls are saying about the looking at the recycling and the costumes thing is something that hurts my heart every time I go to Kadooment and I see costumes lying all over the ground, and I think people paid in some cases and in some countries up to $1,000, $1,500 for these things, and they're sitting there on the ground. Yes, of course there has to be a facility whereby we are doing those kind of things to offset a lot of the a lot of the other carbon emission creating activities that we have been doing. But yes, I think we have to be very balanced in our attitude towards all of these things.
Yeah, thank you, Loretto. And I like the point, the student raised on heritage tourism and so on. Out of the requests I've gotten for speaking engagements, most of them have to do with heritage, culture, CBT, that social aspect, about 40% of the work that comes in. And I recently did one for UNESCO on how to green the orange economy, right? So the orange economy deals with the creative sector and so on, and there's a certain way you can go about greening it. So, so that was done. The other aspect of heritage, is that we don't follow heritage how it used to be in the past, because in the past, how they planted crops and so on, it was by crop rotation. You plant pigeon peas and it puts back nitrates into the soil and you certain things. Nowadays, people have, sort of shifted because, it's the faster way to do things. They insist on chemicals and so on to enrich the soil. But yes, I like that point of heritage and trying to use heritage as an aspect to drive tourism. Any questions again? Perfect. Let's take a UE student this time. So we get a nice mix. Yeah, on the side. Right there.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jordan Clement. I am a tourism management student at the University of the West Indies, Cave Hill campus. So my question is directed to Ms. Kim Butcher. So earlier, under the topic of when asked what does sustainable tourism mean to you, you said that it involves storytelling, involving communities and connecting with communities. Given your background with CariFesta, how was the community involved, or how was the story of the community shown during the planning process of CariFesta, or how can tourism professionals, young tourism professionals, incorporate local communities when planning for upcoming events?
Okay. I love your question. It was a multi-pronged approach. So the story of CariFesta was told through the eyes of our cultural and creative practitioners. So across the region, a number of creatives shared what they were looking forward to as it relates to CariFesta. So we were able to package that content from dancers, singers, musicians across the region. So that was one layer of the storytelling. In addition to that, we had a diverse youth village, and 350 students from across the region were a part of our youth jamboree. And then we also gave them an opportunity to share their first CariFesta experience at our youth village. We then we had our Fringe Festival. There were 20 events that took place across Barbados that went into children's homes, went into care for the elderly homes, where persons then could share their experience with what was happening. So for the very first time, we had persons seeing a CariFesta in a way that you can't see it on TV, and we captured everything. So it was content. This was we have 12,000 hours of content from this CariFesta, which we will then share in perpetuity, whether it's on YouTube, on our social media platforms. We ensured that we created opportunities for people to speak and treat to their authentic experience while it was happening at CariFesta. So the young at heart, as long as you had a story and experience, we created the platform and the opportunity for you to share your lived experience. And that was during CariFesta at our 350 odd events that took place over the 10 days.
Wow. And those are some fantastic case examples for your December exam when you have coming up. Loretto, anything you want to add to that?
No, that's Kim's, that's her area, and I think she did a very good job, but I do absolutely agree that the storytelling is an absolute prime importance. I mean, I come from Ireland originally, and we are the land of storytellers, and I know that growing up with storytelling was something that was always considered to be absolutely essential. And your grandparents made you sit down and listen whether you liked it or not. But at least you got to, and it's something that we have to be very, very careful of. It is something that we have to make sure that we document, because we are forgetting these things with the amount of technology we have, with the amount of people on their phones all day long. We need to start paying a lot more attention to those kind of things and getting them documented properly.
Wow.
I will tell you one thing, just as an add-on. During CariFesta, we had Ava DuVernay, who did a fireside chat, and she is one of the premier storytellers, Black American storytellers. And one of the major takeaways for me is that it is always important to give voice to the persons who don't ordinarily have that opportunity. We consume a lot of social media, but we don't consume a lot of Caribbean, Black, women, young social media. It is time that we pick up the microphone and we speak and we share. As much as I harp on our stories, it is well and truly what defines us as beautiful Black people, to tell our Caribbean story. So if that's your one takeaway from this, remember that. Use your voice as your visa.
Your voice, your visa. All right, let's do 2 more questions and then we will transition. Okay, the gentleman with the plaid shirt had his hand up, and then we can do one at the back of the room.
Good afternoon. My name is Zadi Trocad. I am the Junior Commissioner of Tourism from Dominica, and I attend the Dominica Grammar School. Okay, during the recent workshop, we started a discussion about Americanization and countries trying to compete or replicate the fast-paced American dream life. Since this discussion is about Caribbean tourism, I have 2 questions. 1, do you agree with that perspective? And what are some sustainable practices that islands can use to really promote regional integration and accessibility of Caribbean travel or tourism? Because I think it's time we try to stay away from Caribbean competition and more Caribbean unity. And 2, if you don't agree with that view, give reasons and how we can reduce that mindset in the youth.
I think I should take that one. Regional integration. We can certainly talk. We can certainly talk afterwards. But the region, yes, tourism may be seen as being competitive, but I think it is when you come to events like this, you recognize that there is the desire to take a more holistic approach and to take a regional approach. And you have a lot of the countries that recognize that somebody maybe they don't know of Dominica yet, but they know of another Caribbean country, and then they go to that Caribbean country, they hear more about Dominica, and that's how you find that persons are attracted to the region. Each island offers something a little bit different, but all within the same context. We talk about history, we talk about culture, we talk about uniqueness, but sameness at the same time. I can identify with something Bajan that the word might not be the same. We don't call it that in St. Lucia, but that's what we do, or that's what we eat, or that's that. These are the kind of things that. So you talk about doing the same thing. So the context is the same, and yes, we find that everybody wants to be competitive. But this is the reason why everybody comes to these kinds of events, because they know that they need to come together to do it together. And multi-destination travel is a thing. It's important and it is a thing. And persons coming to the region, we talk about, traveling slower, visiting more countries within one vacation. And I think that this is something that is still very, very important.
Okay. From where I sit, festivals will be our great unifier. So festivals like CariFesta, are opportunities for us to collaborate and not compete, for us to see where we align and understand and appreciate differences. So you are in a unique and fortunate opportunity to be in Barbados. You're going to be taking back a piece of us with you. This is when I said earlier that if I had a magic wand, it would be education. Education just doesn't take place within the classroom. It is your ability to go visit and live in a space where you can understand, appreciate, and respect the unique culture. I feel like we are in a wonderful time where we can travel across the region to connect. So that, for me, would be my solution to ensuring that we're not competing, but we're collaborating. Increase the number of festival-type activities where we can come, see, and experience, and certainly to continue to travel the region. That is your greatest education.
I actually think that regional integration in the tourism sector is probably better than it is in nearly every other sector of the economy, in the sense that we have the Caribbean Tourism Organisation, which is a very strong public sector organisation. We have the Caribbean Hotel and Tourism Association, which is the private sector organisation, and both of whom work together. We also have, of course, the Caribbean Media Exchange, who are here as well, who cover, who put all of the information out there, on tourism, everything to do with tourism. And, the organisations work together. Long time ago, we recognised that the countries of the Caribbean are too small to be marketing on their own, and that we needed this integration to be able to do that. And you will find at all of the biggest travel markets all over the world, you will find there will be the Caribbean will work together. And I think we've done a very good job of it, because the countries do actually work together. So I think that there is, I think we have to look, there's not many other sectors of the economy that work as well together as the tourism sector does. On your question about the Americanization, I liked that one there, because to be perfectly honest with you, I don't think we're going to be hearing too much more about Americanization under the current political situation in the United States. And I think a lot of countries, especially in the Caribbean, are going to be working in the opposite direction altogether. It may have been a thing of the past, and I do agree with you. And again, it probably was because we were working on, it was one of our biggest source markets. That may change. I think it is changing already. But I think it's because, we've had to have taken a big wake-up call that we've got to get away from not only the influence of, but also the dependency on. And so therefore, I think you will see some changes in the region as a result of that.
All right. So let's take one question down to the back, and there's a young lady with her hand up. And that's the final question before we start transitioning into the other aspect of our program, which would be the OECS segment.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Kisia. I'm also a tourism management student with the University of the West Indies, Cape Hill campus. Earlier in the discussion, you were talking a lot about community involvement and trying to foster a mutually beneficial partnership. So for me, my concern/question would be when it comes to sustainable tourism in relation to what it entails, what are the best practices, the impacts, the benefits for the community, how do we go about in educating them? Because for me, education sparks interest, and there is, in some parts, lack of that. So how do we go about involving/educating the community so we can foster/develop that involvement?
Excellent question.
So, yes, very good question. And you're talking about just what the whole purpose of this panel. How do you take a vision and translate it into action? So CTO has this wonderful tool that, Narendra, I really think it's sometimes it's a bit of a secret. But they have this wonderful tool that is a community-based tourism toolkit. And communities can look at this or go through this toolkit. There's checklists, there are steps 1, 2, 3, 4. There are ways of being able to do things. There's how to develop ideas. There are lots of things that you can use from that toolkit to be able to generate the community tourism ideas and to take those ideas and implement them.
Okay. For me, it would be finding the thought leaders in the communities and ensuring that you create space for them to have a seat at the table. And what is happening right now is a living example of that. I am a sustainable fashion brand. I'm a lifestyle brand. And I have the unique opportunity to come and sit in a space where I can share my experiences that will impact tourism. Anytime you create a space where somebody else can sit at the table and share their perspective, you are doing loads for moving the discussion forward. So for me, it's going into the communities and finding those artisans, those community leaders, those specialists, those master craftsmen, and ensuring that they have an opportunity to be able to speak and give their opinions and perspectives that will drive the needle forward as we talk about tourism.
I fully agree with you on that one, but I also think there's a need to seek out those community persons who have an interest in seeing their community thriving. Like, it's not just a question of you're looking at the artists, but artists and creatives. And I think it's a question of finding community activists, community leaders who are going to speak to the powers that be and say, hold on, guys, you cannot just tell us that you're creating a new hotel somewhere or you're doing something. Please bring us to the table and allow us to speak our minds. Please look at the impacts, the negative impacts that it's going to cause on our daily lives, and give us the knowledge to show us how we can turn this into a positive for the entire community. It's not just a question of, well, this is what the ministry has said, or this is what the Prime Minister has said, that this is what we're going to do. We have to demand a voice at the table, and we have to make sure that the people in the community who are able to gather the people together, that they are given that opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Loretto. Thank you to the panelists as well as to the students in the room. Unfortunately, I don't have any more time to take any more questions, but I love the questions we got so far in terms of technology, the youth, airline accessibility, heritage tourism. What does sustainability mean? We had a question on Americanization, and of course, community involvement and how to educate the community and so on. And there are numerous examples on how to involve the community, how to educate the community. And in St. Lucia, there's an ancillary model and so on where they involve persons, and that there's a journal called Tourism Management. You can also, do a search within that journal, and you'll get a lot of community involvement type articles within that particular journal. And in terms of reading, the question on Americanization, Moffat and Munt, 1991. I remember one of my past lecturers is in the room here. She had us read that book, and there's an entire chapter in Moffat and Munt, 1991, that deals with Americanization, commodification, bastardization, trinketization, those terms and so on will come out in there as well. Yeah, I remembered, Maybe I should check it to change my grade. But, a lot of what we've gone on to do is actually because of the foundation in the schools, through UE. Dr. Roberts is here, through Dr. Kola Cameron and others who continue to play a vital role in shaping the youths and students. And we saw that in the quality of questions that came out from these kids. They were fantastic questions, really critical thinkers and so on as well. So you're seeing a pattern as well. It's no longer students are being trained to cram and go and write an exam, but they're applying analytical tools, and they're asking questions, and they're probing, which is, I mean, so great job, Dr. Roberts, and of course all the other teachers and lecturers who are in the room. All right, so today we've heard bold ideas, we had some honest reflections, we had some inspiring visions, right? And the message is clear. Sustainable transformation isn't an option, it's the future of tourism. But let's remember, it's not just about policies, businesses, or strategies. It's about our relationship with the earth and with each other, right? We heard communities and community tourism come out so many times, right? I want to quote one more. The book of Proverbs 13:22 reminds us, a good person leaves an inheritance for their children's children. And that is sustainability. Ensuring what we build today becomes a blessing for generations to come. So here's the challenge I leave with all of us. When we leave this room and return to our destinations, our hotels, our ministries, our businesses, let's not ask if we can transform sustainably, but how soon, how boldly, and how collectively we can do it. We heard that word collective so many times, right? And as Nelson Mandela said, it always seems impossible until it is done. So let us commit to being the generation that makes Caribbean tourism a global model, not only for growth, but for resilience, inclusion, and sustainability. I want to thank you and say a big thank you to our panelists, right? And to all of you for being part of this movement and being part of today. And let's keep the conversation and the transformation alive. And at this time, I want to transition now to the OECS segment of our program. So please welcome your moderator, Miss Maria Fowell. She's going to take us to the end. And we are going to pass around the collection plates. Huh?
Good afternoon, everybody. I would like to say good afternoon to the ministers that are here, and I'd like to recognize the ambassador from the EU delegation and all of the students and everybody today. Looking to see whether my colleagues in the room, yes, indeed, okay, good. Thank you very much. As I had indicated earlier, as part of the panel, the OECS Commission has been working on coming out of the sustainable tourism policy that our Council of Ministers have just, or recently, earlier this year, endorsed. We started work on a climate action plan for the tourism sector. So this opportunity that CTO has given us today to utilize this platform to launch our publication, we are extremely grateful for. And we are also extremely grateful to the European Union, who has supported through the Biospace project, has supported the development of this publication. So this afternoon, what we would like to do is just share some brief remarks from our Director General and just to highlight some of the aspects of the plan, and then do our formal handover of the plan to CTO and to the EU. So with that said, and I think that it's fitting within the World Tourism Day theme of sustainable transformation that we're talking about climate action in tourism. And if we can have the video recording from the Director General, Dr. Didicus Jules.
The Honorable Ian Gooden Edghill, Chairman of the Council of Ministers of the Caribbean Tourism Organization, and Minister of Tourism and International Transport of Barbados. The Honorable Adrian Thomas, Chairman of the OECS Council of Ministers, Minister of Tourism, Creative Economy and Culture of Grenada, Ministers of Tourism from the OECS member states and across the region, which is Donna Regis Prosper, Secretary General and CEO of the Caribbean Tourism Organization, distinguished representatives of the European Union delegation, permanent secretaries, tourism CEOs and directors, specially invited guests, partners, and friends of Caribbean tourism, members of the media, good morning. It is a distinct honor to join you today on the eve of the State of Tourism Industry Conference and in observance of World Tourism Day 2025. The theme of this year, Tourism and Sustainable Transformation, could not be more fitting as we come together to launch the OECS Climate Action Plan for the tourism sector. This launch is more than a ceremonial event. It is a milestone moment in the journey of our region to ensure that the very lifeblood of our economies, tourism, becomes not only more resilient, but also a leader in the global movement towards sustainability and regeneration. I extend sincere gratitude to the Caribbean Tourism Organization for collaborating with the OECS Commission in this launch. This partnership is symbolic of the spirit of regional unity that we need to confront the climate crisis together. Tourism is one of the most important economic pillars of the OECS. It sustains livelihoods, creates jobs, supports small businesses, and connects our cultures to the world. Yet the truth is undeniable. The same assets that attract millions of visitors to our shores, our beaches, reefs, forests, and vibrant communities, are the very assets most vulnerable to the climate emergency. We have lived this reality. Stronger and more frequent hurricanes destroying infrastructure and setting back development by decades, rising seas eroding our beaches, swallowing coastal heritage sites, coral bleaching, diminishing our marine biodiversity and threatening dive tourism. Successive heat waves and water stress reduces visitor comfort and adds to costs. So this is not theoretical. It is our lived experience, one that directly affects competitiveness, stability, and quality of life in our societies. Faced with this reality, why an OECS Climate Action Plan? The OECS could not remain passive. The Climate Action Plan for the tourism sector, CAP, is our strategic and timely response. It has been developed with our member states with input from both tourism and environment ministries and supported by the European Union through the Biospace Project and our strategic partner, the Travel Foundation. This plan reflects both the urgency of the crisis and the opportunity for transformation. It is firmly rooted in the OECS Sustainable Tourism Policy 2025 to 2035, which was endorsed by our Ministers of Tourism, and it aligns with the St. George's Declaration of Principles for Environmental Management in the OECS. Our climate adaptation strategy and our global commitment under the Glasgow Declaration on Climate Action in Tourism. The CAP is anchored in 5 strategic objectives, each designed to address both the threats and the opportunities before us. 1, strengthening climate risk assessment and disaster resilience. 2, protecting and restoring biodiversity and marine ecosystems. 3, improving emissions measurement and enabling decarbonization. 4, accelerating clean energy, sustainable mobility, and circular economy practices. And lastly, mobilizing climate-smart finance and investment. These objectives are supported by 3 enablers: capacity building, engagement, and policy reform. Together, they form a practical roadmap to move from vision to implementation. Colleagues and friends, this plan is a roadmap and a call to action. It calls on governments to harmonize policies and invest in resilience. It calls on the private sector, from large hotels to small guest houses, to innovate, decarbonize, and adopt climate-ready practices. It calls on communities to lead, to co-manage natural assets, and to ensure that benefits are shared fairly. It even calls on our visitors to travel responsibly, respect ecosystems, and to support climate-positive tourism. This is a whole-of-society agenda. Only through collective leadership can the OECS become a global model of climate-smart tourism, where communities lead, businesses innovate, and nature thrives. The CAP sets out 4 immediate enabling actions to move from planning to delivery: designating national climate and tourism focal points, establishing a regional CAP forum and working group, mapping finance and partnership opportunities, and conducting a regional tourism climate baseline assessment. These are practical steps to ensure that this launch is not an end but a beginning, the start of an implementation journey that will be reviewed, updated, and strengthened every 3 years. In this journey, partnerships will be essential. The OECS is committed to working hand in hand with CTO, CARICOM, development partners like the EU, and regional and global NGOs. Together, we can mobilize the finance, knowledge, and innovation that small island states urgently need. As we look ahead, the OECS Sustainable Tourism Policy provides our guiding vision, while this Climate Action Plan brings its climate ambitions to life through practical actions. Together, they chart a pathway to a tourism sector that is not merely sustainable but regenerative, one that restores ecosystems, empowers communities, and secures prosperity for future generations. On this World Tourism Day, let us commit to making sustainable transformation our shared reality. I thank all our partners, stakeholders, and communities for their contributions to this work. And I extend once again my deep appreciation to the Caribbean Tourism Organization for their steadfast collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you. So Dr. Jules has set out a vision and a sense of urgency with the plan. And as he highlighted, the CAP is both a call to action, a roadmap, as well as a call to action, and inviting all stakeholders to get involved. And our OECS Council of Ministers of Tourism had mandated the work on this climate action plan, that we work closely with the departments of environment across the member states, and in order for us to ensure that there was a development of a plan that was holistic and involved all of the stakeholders, so both on the tourism side as well as the environment side. And it was really necessary to involve our environmental sustainability division to work with us internally and with our environment stakeholders. So I'd like to welcome, and she's all the way in the back of the room, so she's going to come up to welcome our OECS program officer, who from our climate change and disaster risk management unit, Ms. Shana Emmanuel, who will just briefly, because DG really went into quite a bit, so she'll just briefly take us through some of the actions around the plan.
Good afternoon, all. I will adopt the protocol that's already been established. Good afternoon. This is not my normal, you're not my normal peers, but I'm so happy to be here. So I work in climate and disaster resilience, and we were so excited when Maria came up with this idea of doing a climate action plan for our most important sector. So this plan really covers quite a bit, starting off with, of course, the risks that we face in this region. And I don't think I have to say too much, but we know that some of our biggest risks include beach loss and coastal erosion, reef and marine degradation, heat waves, storms, drought, all the things that we all experience on a, unfortunately, it feels like daily or at least annual basis now. And tourism has quite an impact on our climate numbers as well. So our emissions from tourism come mostly from transport, energy usage, so cooling is a big one, but energy overall is one of the big sectors that tourism pulls from. It also has a big impact on our food systems, on agriculture and food import bills, because millions of people are coming and they need to be fed. And that also leads then to waste and the impact that this sector has on waste and how we deal with it as a region. But this CAP sets out, our climate action plan sets out to create a more resilient, inclusive, clean energy powered, community-led and ecosystem thriving climate for all. And it creates a Caribbean that can, of course, continue to support tourism, but do it so that tourism also helps to support all the things that we need in order to thrive. DG went into our 5 strategic objectives and actions, but what I wanted to also highlight was that we have cross-cutting principles. There are 5 of those as well, which includes climate justice, so there is a focus on the most vulnerable. Inclusion, so that we empower our youth, women, and especially our medium and small enterprises and micro enterprises. Community leadership, so that locals get to shape what tourism looks like. Regeneration, so that we restore our ecosystems and ensure that we have nature positive actions. And finally, open access, so that we share all that we are learning while we are learning it. We share our lessons, we share our data, and we share the tools that we hope to develop during the implementation of this plan. And our 5 strategic objectives, I'll just highlight them again, is to strengthen risk assessment and resilience. We want to know where our hazards are, and we want to ensure that we have ways to mitigate against the worst of what we know is to come, and even to start to look at when we don't know. In climate change, we have a term called loss and damage, which means essentially that it's the things we cannot adapt to. It's the changes that will come that there can be no adaptation for. So we need to start to actually document those things when they happen. We need to know what those possible risks are, and we need to start to address them with things like climate-ready tourism, tourism that's not happening in areas where there will be, where it's going to be affected due to hazards, certain hazards. So let's look at what that looks like in the future. Our second strategic objective is to protect and restore nature. That's always important. Nature is doing its job, and when it does its job well, we end up a lot safer. I had the opportunity to look at Hurricane Beryl, post-Hurricane Beryl, and what the mangroves did for Carriacou Airport, for Union Island's roads and houses. Those mangroves took quite a beating, but they were able to do what they have to. So now we need to ensure we restore them, and we need to ensure we continue to protect them. The third strategic objective, of course, is to measure and report. I was so happy to hear our students talking about the need for tools and the need for the integration of technology. We have to know what we're doing, and we have to know if we're doing it right, so measuring and reporting of those is essential. Of course, to decarbonize, strategic objective number 4 is to decarbonize and advance the circular economies and circular tourism. Looking at a decarbonized tourism product, what does that look like? But also to see where we can involve the new technologies, having more EVs being used by the tourism sector, looking at our hotels, where can we integrate more renewable energy and how can we do that? And fifth, we know that all of this takes money. So our fifth strategic objective, of course, is to mobilize climate finance for the tourism sector, to see where private and public sector can come together and ensure that we are all winning in order to have long-term vision on our tourism sector, but one, of course, that is sustainable and one that's inclusive for all. DG mentioned our next steps, so I'm so happy that we are here today. I'm so happy that we're able to do this together, to have the tourism and environment even at our organization, the two divisions speaking to each other and being able to build this amazing plan. And I look forward to our implementation. And I look forward to all of you having a chance to see the plan and also putting your own stamp on it and finding ways of assisting in the implementation. So thank you so much for inviting me today and wishing you all the best for your conference.
Thank you, Shanna. So we have with us today two of our OECS ministers of tourism, and I'm putting them on the spot because they're here with us today. We have two plans that we would like to formally hand over to one to the EU and one to the CTO. So I would like to ask the ministers to do that representation for us. I'm very pleased to say that the ambassador for the EU delegation to Barbados, Eastern Caribbean states, the OECS, CARICOM and CARIFORUM, she has a lot, is here with us today. So, Your Excellency, thank you so much for joining us. And I will ask our minister from Antigua to make the presentation to you of the publication. Antigua and Barbuda. I can't believe I made the same mistake Donna made. So, Ambassador, if you would just join in the front. Okay. Okay, I need to get there. Okay, and then I'm going to ask Minister Connors from the wonderful island of Anguilla to join us. He's the Minister of Tourism and Health and a few others. Sports. All right, there we go. So, and Naranja, let me just. Sure. So the publication will be available online. So it's available electronically on the OECS website. We do have a few copies, hard copies, for those persons that are keenly interested, but the publication is available online. I want to thank CTO for the opportunity to use this platform to launch our climate action plan. We have some activities coming up that will roll out the plan, and we feel that it's important to let everybody know what we're doing. So we thank you so much, and I thank the ambassador and thank the ministers for indulging us this afternoon. So thank you to everybody that attended, and Naranja, do I just wrap up? Okay, great. All right, so SOTIC begins officially tomorrow. There is a welcome reception in the evening, tomorrow evening, and everybody is invited. So thank you.